Everybody see it? We good to go?
Yep.
All right, when you guys are done talking, just say next slide and I'll move right on over.
All right. So we decided to do our project on Tesla and their integration into the Japanese market. Okay, so you can go into the next slide, Jeff. Okay, so, sorry, one sec. So Tesla is an American electric vehicle and clean energy company based in Palo Alto, California. Their mission statement is to accelerate the world's transition into sustainable energy. Tesla originally began as an automotive company, but over the years, they've started to do a lot more than just, automotive clean energy vehicles that are run on electric. Right now, they are also doing solar panels, batteries. They just created a new generator, and they have even started making tequila, which is, I found crazy, but the one thing we're going to focus on today mainly is their car business. They were founded in 2003 by their CEO, Elon Musk, as well as J.B. Straubel, Martin Eberhard, Mark Tarpenning, and Ian Wright. Their first car, the Roadster, was first created in 2008, so there was about 5 years of development that went into it. Okay, as you can see in the bottom left corner, it's a pretty sporty little car. It's completely electric, and it debuted their cutting-edge battery technology and their all-electric powertrain. A few months later, they came out with the Model S, and it was the first all-electric luxury sedan that came out, and it was very revolutionary at the time. The Model S actually became the best car in its class in absolutely every category, and the Model S is the longest range electric vehicle out there at 402 miles per charge, and it can go 0 to 60 in just 2.28 seconds, so it's pretty quick too. According to Forbes, Tesla is actually worth $594.4 billion with their current stock price of $604.20 per share. With Tesla building its most affordable car yet, the stock will only continue to grow as it ventures into more broader markets. You can go into the next slide.
Okay. So the external analysis of Japan, so the GDP is worth 508,177 billion US dollars in 2019. Japan's GDP alone accounts for 4.22% of the world's economy. And this actually over here, this graph I thought was it's a forecast since we are looking into potentially having Tesla go into Japan. It's a forecast of what the GDP would look like by the end of 2020 and then into 2022. There is hang on. So it's difficult to enter the Japanese market because of how high their population is. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so this graph I think is a little more interesting than the last graph. So this one specifically is a future forecast of what is the GDP for manufacturing in Japan, which is something that we would need to consider, or Tesla would need to consider if they were going into the Japanese market, specifically, obviously, in manufacturing. So next slide. All right, so the Japanese automobile industry, the Japanese currently are led by the big three. This is Toyota, Nissan, Honda. These companies have been at the top since the 60s. However, they're falling behind in autonomous technology. A weak point of the Japanese car manufacturing is that they've concentrated really heavily on engines and transmissions and their strength in manufacturing. Next. All right, so another setback is the Keiretsu group system, which is actually what Keiretsu stands for, is group. This is a Japanese business structure comprised of networks of different companies, including banks, manufacturing, distributors, and supply chain partners. They're focused on traditional relationships. So once they're formed with those components, they typically don't go out of their way to go to a different manufacturing or a different distributor or a different bank. So this makes them very relationship oriented, and they've been with the same companies for years. So next slide. So the Keiretsu system is a bound car makers and has bound car makers and suppliers from purchasing potential innovation, pursuing innovation. Thus, Japan has fallen behind in the automotive industry. An horizontal Keiretsu refers to an alliance of cross-sharing companies. It's led by Japanese banks that provide a range of financial services. And then a vertical Keiretsu is is a partnership of manufacturers and suppliers and distributors that work cooperatively to increase efficiency. But again, with this, they're not being forced to try something new and finding someone different that may be able to do it for cheaper. Therefore, it's lacking that that drive for innovation. So a drawback of the Keiretsu system as well is easy access to capital. Since they're already kind of joined with the bank, this can lead for them companies to take on a lot of debt and invest in risky strategies. Next slide. So global pressures. Japanese car manufacturing are importing parts and components at a growing rate. This is forcing countries, parts suppliers to diversify their products to compete with obviously suppliers abroad. To remain competitive in the global environment, both sides of the Japanese automotive industry and are investing in research and development domestically and internationally to kind of keep up. As car manufacturers are taking more focus on foreign markets, their investments in innovation and increasing exports are expected to grow. So next slide. So this is the green effort that the industry is trying to make, or sustainability. The Japanese cars are most environmentally friendly compared to a lot of other manufacturers. So Toyota, they have their Toyota Environment Challenge by 2050 to reduce environmental impact. And then Honda also has introduced its $400 million to modernize its manufacturing plant to reduce greenhouse gases. Toyota also wants to do, they've reached more than 10 million cumulative units of hybrid vehicle sales. And then next slide. So the culture of our target market, obviously we're trying to infiltrate the Japanese market. So the Japanese tend to be more relationship oriented than other cultures when it comes to doing business. The Japanese want to get to know someone before they trust, before closing, any kind of a deal. And they typically develop their relationship through social gatherings that don't talk about business in the beginning. Next slide. So the Japanese customer, when we're kind of looking at what our target market would be, the Japanese customer typically falls into these 4 ranges. So they're space saving, they're cost conscious, and they're luxury centered, and they like reputation. So when it comes to this, the reality of living, especially in Tokyo, is there's limited space. So they're very particular about certain things they buy, and if it's worth taking up space in their small living arrangements to buy that certain item. Another one, obviously cost conscious. They have a lower disposable income, but this is typically just for the younger population, which makes up about 43.8%. They prefer value over the price, which wins out. Then we talk about luxury-centered goods. There's fewer higher quantity items. So the Japanese still spend a lot of money on luxury goods. It's very high. There's a strong desire for the quality of an item, which obviously falls in the line of luxury goods. And a fun fact is that Louis Vuitton actually earns half of its global profits from Japanese stores, which is about 60 of them alone. So also reputation focused. Honor and reputation is high in the Japanese culture. So having both in a brand is critical for them to want to purchase something from that company. So next slide. So marketing to the Japanese, we'd focus on obviously advertisement, language and location, and then holidays and seasons seem to be the big 3. So when it comes to ads, typically Japan actually views them positively rather than a nuisance like a lot of other countries, or they're neutral about them. So they don't really find them distracting. So that's good if you're trying to market to them. They don't find those ads, they usually view them pretty positively. Language and location is important. So there's actually a legal requirement for a certain ad to have the Japanese language in it. And then there's also, you want to make sure of localizing the content to make it relative to the people that might be purchasing your product. So another point would be holidays and seasons. So this is something to be just wary about, depending on when we'd want to market. Right around the summer, a lot of Japanese actually get a really big bonus. which this is about 3,000, which means that they have higher spending during that month. And then also to keep in mind, Christmas, New Year's, and White Day are important spending days. White Day is just technically an extra Valentine's Day. But yeah, so next slide.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the industry analysis. So car manufacturing is Japan's largest industry, and it employs over 5.5 million people and is valued at over 50 trillion yen, which is about over 50 million US dollars. So the major competitors in this industry are Honda, Toyota, and Nissan. And all three corporations are worldwide competitors, but each is based out of Japan, so they stand as both international and local competition. Next slide. So the competitive situation, and this is having to do with this industry, all depends on how well the other major players are doing. So the pandemic has created some major issues in the world and has forced everyone to adapt the best they can. And as we will see, not every company has responded as well as others. For instance, Honda has responded very well to the pandemic, as they've seen a 23% growth in profit from the last quarter. Their profit has gone up 240 billion yen. So it's up from 195.6 billion yen from a year ago. However, they haven't been perfect, as they have lowered their profit forecast from the year before. But as this year has gone on, as they've dealt with the pandemic, they've actually increased their projection from earlier in the year. So as the pandemic has gone on, they've gotten more adept at responding to it. However, Toyota has not handled the issue as well, as their profit has dropped 730 billion yen in the fiscal year, and it's down 64% from last year. So Toyota hasn't responded very well. Nissan has had some other issues pre-COVID, where they had a former executive who just kind of messed up what they were doing and had tarnished their reputation and made their profits drop. So they posted a 44.4 billion yen loss in the last quarter, as the pandemic really hurt them. And then Tesla, although Tesla doesn't operate in Japan yet,